Quick intro, here's every creature type in my original tabletop setting, Iron Bigot. Angels are made out of the binary, black and white flame encased inside a ceramic or metal doll. Angels act as the soldiers, administrators, delegates, and laborers of a foreign pantheon known as the Black and White Gods. Angels are not alive. They are entirely self-sufficient from the moment of their creation. Angels are divine, immortal, and thus cannot reproduce, are all female, and are immune to disease and poison. The doll they occupy can be physically damaged and destroyed, but it can be easily repaired, and it is only a minor inconvenience to the angel themselves. Angels do not possess free will and must be a lawful alignment. There is a finite amount of angels in existence at any given time. Angels cannot acquire class or racial levels. All the levels they'll ever have are given to them upon creation. Black angels are immune to low energy states, like frost and dark damage. White angels, on the other hand, are immune to high energy states, like fire or light damage. Angels are antithetical to demons, the Fae, umbral creatures, and undead creatures. Angels are a thematic environmental influence. They make the reality around them more lawful. An artificial entity is any sort of machine or synthetic creature created by man-made origins, such as science, magic, or any combination of the two. Think golems, dolls, but also clones and homunculi. Artificial entities are not alive, but they do require some kind of fuel source and periodic maintenance to maintain integrity. Synthetic entities, however, are kind of alive. Artificial entities are immortal, cannot reproduce, are sexless but can emulate it, and are immune to disease and poison. Artificial entities can die from a lack of maintenance, but can theoretically be repaired and put back together again indefinitely. Artificial entities do not naturally possess free will, nor the moral or spiritual agency to be any alignment besides lawful neutral. Artificial entities can acquire free will under certain special conditions. Artificial entities can only be given racial levels, but are otherwise extremely modular. Artificial entities are antithetical to demons, the Fae, and magical creatures. Beastmen are a creature type adjacent to humanoids. Beastmen would be humanoids, but they still reside in an evolutionary developmental period that doesn't allow them that special something humanoids possess. This could be due to creationism, a curse, or secular evolutionary forces. To contextualize this and make it sound a little less racist, a Homo erectus would be a beastman, but a Homo sapien, or perhaps even a Neanderthal, wouldn't. Beastmen are alive. I mean, of course they are. Beastmen are mortal, possess free will, and thus are not restricted by alignment. Beastmen can acquire their own class and racial levels. Beastmen cannot manipulate arcane magic. Beastmen are capable of maintaining indefinite homeostasis with nature. Chimeras are monstrous beasts that have emulated or assimilated, whether through magic or some kind of complicated biological process, the attributes of another beast. Most chimeras are one-shot genetic failures. This creature type is meant for the handful that have settled on a meta, have bred true, and now live in established persistent populations as apex predators. Chimeras are very alive. Chimeras possess free will, but are not intelligent enough to exercise it and can only be neutral. Chimeras excel at acquiring racial levels. Chimeras possess a unique armor class. Their damage immunities and resistances can vary wildly and are subject to frequent adaptations. Chimeras are frequently colonial organisms with multiple brains. Chimeras are antagonistic to man-made development. Chimeras are incapable of homeostasis with nature. Demons are spirits of chaos, wrapped in the only thing that can contain them, flesh. It is said that demons, in their primordial fetal state, existed once as a beautiful prismatic light of many colors before living things began to exist. Demons are not alive, but the flesh they occupy is. They do not technically need to eat, drink, breathe, sleep, or produce waste, but they are compelled to do so. Demons are divine, but not immortal, and can therefore reproduce, and are all male, even though they don't always look male. The flesh that binds them is susceptible to poison, disease, and can age, but such things do not personally inconvenience the demon. Demons can acquire class and racial levels. Demons do not truly possess free will. They must always be a chaotic alignment. Demons are immune to low-energy states, like frost and shadow damage. Demons are antithetical to angels, artificial entities, umbral creatures, and the undead. Demons are a thematic environmental influence. They make the world around them more chaotic, fleshy, and horny. Draconids are the vaguely reptilian spawn of the Titan Tiamat, and are an entire biological class of demigods. The fatal flaw of dragons is each individual perceives themselves as a god and will have nothing to do with other dragons. The only threat to a dragon is, of course, another dragon. This narcissism has led to literal millions of years of inbreeding, outbreeding, and the expansive roster of lesser draconids that justifies this creature type. Draconids are alive. Draconids are divine, but are not immortal. Living a very long time is not immortality, and thus can reproduce, and boy do they! Draconids are immune to disease, but not poison. Draconids possess their own unique armor class. Draconids regularly molt, becoming more powerful with each new form and age, and possess remarkable regenerative abilities. Draconids are immune to arcane damage and whatever damage type their obligate breath weapon is. Draconids can gain class levels if they're smart enough to do so, but truly excel at gaining racial levels. Draconids can have free will, provided they have the intelligence to exercise it, and therefore are not restricted to alignments. Draconids naturally wield arcane magic via a crystallized gem inside their brain called a Dracotite. Draconids are a thematic environmental influence. They make their home more Cretaceous and primal. Elementals are sapient primordial motes of nature, occupying thematic physical vessels of earth, air, water, fire, and wood. Wood is an element in Iron Bigot. Elementals are not technically alive, but the various elementals have different needs. Earth elementals must sleep and make waste. Fire elementals must eat and breathe. Air elementals must breathe and drink. Water elementals must sleep and drink. And wood elementals must drink, breathe, and make waste. Elementals are divine, immortal, but can do something that resembles reproduction by dividing their essence and occupying more matter. Elementals can emulate a sex if they so desire it. Elementals are immune to disease and poison. Elementals can acquire both class and racial levels. Elementals do not possess free will and are confined to neutral alignments. Elementals are immune to whatever element they are. Elementals are antithetical to umbral creatures and opposing elementals, and possess a thematic environmental influence, constantly waging tribal conflict to acquire more matter and terraform territory. The Fae are demons that, upon exposure to the beauty, pleasures, and the comparative serenity of the natural world, proceeded to go native and bound themselves to it. The Fae are completely alive and must eat, drink, sleep, breathe, and produce waste, though they love it, and would do it even if they didn't have to. The Fae are divine, but possess only a functional immortality, meaning they can live forever and reproduce, but must do so through a third party. The Fae are immune to disease, but not poison. The Fae can acquire both class and racial levels. The Fae do not possess true free will and still remain restricted to chaotic alignments like their demonic precursors. The Fae are antithetical to angels, artificial entities, umbral creatures, and the undead. The Fae are also antagonistic to man-made development. The Fae are a thematic environmental influence. They make their home more arboreal and primal. A giant is any humanoid or beastman that is equal to or over 10 feet tall, which is like 3 meters, in height. There are some species that are naturally born as giants, but some people can also acquire this creature type by simply becoming big. Giants are alive. Giants possess their own unique armor class. Giants can acquire class and racial levels. Giants have extended lifespans, but are otherwise mortal and possess free will. Giant beastmen and giant humanoids still retain their respective smaller creature type qualities even when they're giants. A giant beastman, for instance, would still be in balance with their environment, while a giant humanoid would still be incongruent with theirs. Humanoids are a very special creature type because they're you and me. I mean, unless you're a dog on the internet. Humanoids are defined by their determination and ingenuity. Every species of humanoid has the agency and potential to make history, spread across a planet, create civilization, and be important. Humanoids are alive. Humanoids can acquire racial levels, but they suck at it. No other creature type, however, is better at gaining class levels than them. Humanoids are mortal and bitch about it constantly. They possess free will, are not restricted to the alignment system, despite what they might tell you, and can reproduce. And boy do they. Humanoids are completely incongruent with their environment. Every humanoid naturally desires to disrupt and change the world around them. Magical beasts, sometimes called supernatural or paranormal creatures, are animals that naturally possess some kind of enchanted quality to their biology. Magical beasts are alive, and they need to eat, drink, breathe, sleep, and produce waste. But they must also live in close proximity to some kind of source of magic, whether natural or artificial. Magical beasts possess a functional divinity and immortality, but can reproduce through unconventional magical methods. Magical beasts can acquire racial levels and class levels if they're intelligent enough to do so. Magical beasts, regardless of intelligence, do not possess free will and are restricted to neutral alignments. Magical beasts sometimes possess a unique armor class. Magical beasts naturally have access to one magic type, typically arcane. Magical beasts are antagonistic to man-made development. Magical beasts are antithetical to artificial entities, demons, undead, and umbral creatures. Magical beasts are a thematic environmental influence. As you might have guessed, they make the world more magical. Monstrous beasts are tragic beings, as Ishiro Hondo would say. Too tall, too strong, and too heavy. Monstrous beasts could be thought of as an anthropocentric creature type, since their defining trait is their ability to defend themselves from and prey upon humanoids. Monstrous beasts are alive. Monstrous beasts can gain racial levels. Monstrous beasts are mortal. They can freely reproduce and could hypothetically exercise free will, but their lack of sapience restricts them to the true neutral alignment. Monstrous beasts often possess a unique armor class. Monstrous beasts are particularly antagonistic to any kind of man-made development. Outsiders are extra-dimensional beings. This can mean creatures from adjacent realities, where physics operate differently, and or creatures with literal additional dimensions that interact with higher planes of reality. Outsiders are technically alive, but they do not always eat, drink, breathe, sleep, or produce waste in ways we conventionally understand. Outsiders that originate from a higher dimension possess a functional divinity and immortality. If you've seen Flatland, you know what I mean. Outsiders are susceptible to poison and disease, but what constitutes that can vary wildly. Certain ideas or times of day, milk, or 90-degree angles could potentially be harmful to them. Outsiders may or may not possess free will. Regardless, many of them cannot be moralized by alignment. Outsiders can gain racial levels and class levels if they possess some kind of intelligence. Outsiders possess completely unique armor classes based on their dimension of origin. Outsiders that occupy a higher dimension are capable of metagaming and do not necessarily have to obey all tabletop gaming rules present in Iron Bigot. Some outsiders possess arcane magic. Outsiders are antithetical to umbral creatures. Slimes are any kind of gelatinous, boneless, monstrous beast. Many slimes could be considered animals, but there are a number of giant bacteria and unicellular creatures that warrant this specific creature type. Slimes are alive and need to eat, drink, breathe, sleep, and produce waste, even if they don't exactly do it in a way most would consider familiar. Slimes can acquire racial levels. Slimes are mortal, susceptible to poison and disease, despite some of them literally being diseases, but cannot exercise free will because slime, and are always the true neutral alignment. Slimes are extremely vulnerable to salt and typically fire. Certain slimes, however, are extremophiles and can be immune to elemental and exotic damage types, such as fire, acid, and magic. Umbral creatures are evil supernatural entities that exist without my permission. They wander in from any darkness or absence in creation and are largely out of my hands. Umbral creatures were not originally alive, but I have imposed flesh and the needs brought upon it to stagger their ability to do evil. Umbral creatures possess something that is a parody of divinity, are immortal, and cannot reproduce despite their best efforts. Umbral creatures are immune to poison and disease despite my best efforts. Umbral creatures are ontologically evil. Umbral creatures can gain racial levels and class levels. Umbral creatures naturally possess shadow magic. Umbral creatures are aware and capable of metagaming, but they cannot break the tabletop rules of play in Iron Bigot. Umbral creatures are antithetical to everything and everyone except the undead. Umbral creatures are a thematic environmental influence. They make whatever place they occupy worse. The undead are a collection of entities that have, by either necromancy or their own sheer overwhelming fear of death, managed to persist as living corpses and ghoulish spirits. The undead are explicitly not alive, and do not need to eat, drink, breathe, sleep, or produce waste, but are compelled to do so because being undead is just the fucking worst. Undead are technically immortal and cannot reproduce. They are also immune to poison, but not necessarily disease. Certain undead can actually become even more powerful by carrying diseases. Undead are ontologically evil and thus do not possess free will. Undead can acquire racial levels and class levels if they're intelligent. Some undead even inherit class levels from their previous life. All forms of undead can be destroyed by sunlight. Undead are antithetical to everything and everyone, except maybe umbral creatures. Undead are a thematical environmental influence. They produce a magical substance called miasma that slowly saps the energy and positivity out of an environment. Vegetation is a broad creature type, encompassing any monstrous beasts, beastmen, giants, humanoids, or really any other sort of mortal creature that is flora instead of fauna. Vegetation is not to be confused with the wood element. Vegetation is alive and must eat, drink, breathe, sleep, and produce waste, despite how people commonly perceive plants. Vegetation is mortal and susceptible to poison and disease, but otherwise possess remarkable regenerative properties and can extend their lives and reproduce in ways considered unconventional to most other organisms. Vegetation can gain racial levels and class levels if they possess a plant-based brain. Vegetation has free will, and some plants are even intelligent enough to use it. Vegetation is antagonistic to man-made development. Vegetation is antithetical to the undead. Vegetation, despite any other creature type, is capable of homeostasis with the environment. Vegetation is a literal and thematic environmental influence. They make the world green. That should be about everyone. I might be forgetting some information, but just consider that a part of my quirky charm as an unreliable narrator. Thanks for watching. See you next time.